Hey guys, so you're watching this because you probably want to learn more about shamanic breathwork or holotropic breathwork in general, and what it can do for a person. Well, you found the right video because in this interview, I get to talk to Colter Smith. Colter is an experienced facilitator. He's been doing it for about 3 to 4 years now, working with people, and he has seen the profound impact it can have in people's lives in helping them with their health, helping them make shifts inside their lives, helping them deal with past traumas. Everything and anything that this channel is about is in this conversation, and it is so valuable. It's just like a constant blast of information. So I hope you guys are ready for an epic interview with none other than Colter Smith. Let's jump right into it.
Breathwork just in a lot of ways showed up to me about 4 years ago. I was doing a lot of energy meditations and kind of really interesting woo-woo stuff with a lot of friends. And my friend said, here, try this video. And it was about, it's a guy named J.R. Cabal, Quantum Light Breath. And she's like, play this music, do the breathwork technique, and you need to teach people how to do this. Because she had gotten amazing results from our really cool meditations we were doing. So I did it, had one of those mind-blowing experiences where the body vibrated. I was feeling myself as pure energy and awareness. My body sometimes at times was dissolving. I was going into like the subconscious mind and seeing all these visions and images and symbols, and all of a sudden my body would go flush, and then it would like twist and turn, and I was feeling myself at a deeper core level, and then emotions would come up, and there was so many, I think it was 45 minutes of doing this breathwork journey, and I remember calling her and just being like, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. And so I started incorporating breathwork into these intense meditations I was doing, and then I play about 16 different instruments and put people through these experiences. But the breath is just a catalyst to everything. And when I had these amazing experiences, I just wanted to share them with everybody. So it just took off. So I've been doing it for 3.5 years now, about 3.5 years, actually facilitating and holding space for others.
That's amazing. So your first session, the first time you did it, it was 45 minutes long, you said?
Roughly, yes.
And how long did it take you before you? I mean, like, I know you. It's not like you were looking at a timer, but like, sure. How long did it take you before you started feeling like the effects of the breath work?
Yeah. So especially when I hold classes, I tell people exactly this. Mostly it depends on how open you are, how willing you are to surrender, because surrender's the biggest thing in breath work. Stuff comes up that you aren't prepared for, and you need to just allow, and you can block it. You can block it with your ego, with your overactive monkey mind. You got to learn to shut that off. So people come to breathwork, and maybe the first time is truly life-changing, and sometimes they got to come a second or third time to get to that space of allowance and surrender. And so I kind of knew what I was doing in a way from energy, and to find these flow states, because many different types of breath work, but the one I was doing was finding a circular flow state. It usually takes, in my opinion, about 15 to 45 minutes to find those states of like where the breath is breathing you and you're really feeling it, So if I had to guess, it probably took about 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, you're hitting different brainwave states, you're hitting your emotions. And I remember there was a heart opening that happened probably 30 minutes in. And there's a lot of things that happen with your body physically, but emotionally, you tap into your emotional guidance system, and all of a sudden, you're just feeling life inside of you, and it's twirling and twisting, and it's alive, and old angers are surfacing, and love is pouring out of you, and it's wild. So I just remember getting to these states, almost going, what the heck is going on? Like, because the conscious mind doesn't understand what's happening. You're feeling so much, you're sensing so much, and it's just a wild ride that you got to surrender to.
So I mean that sounds like very similar to like a psychedelic experience. Would you say that it's on par with what you? Huh?
Very, exactly. So when I facilitate personally, when I create sacred space for other people, I do it different ways. One's very grounding, more earthy, One is a very angelic and uplifting, and it kind of gets you like out of your body, if that makes sense. So you can have full on, I would say, psychedelic experiences. You can have them be that experience that you're seeing colors, you're seeing sounds, hearing sounds that you normally wouldn't hear. You're feeling your full body as pure energy, pure awareness. You're getting into like these 0 point states and almost into relativity, like where 2 hours can seem like 20 minutes, and you go into, people can go and feel their toroidal energy field, their torus energy field. You can feel so much just like on psychedelics. So I tell people that if they're familiar with mushroom journeys or ayahuasca journeys, let's say ayahuasca is a 10 out of 10, just as an experience, let's say. Breathwork, in my opinion, once again, many different types, but the way I do it, you can have like a 2, a 3, or a 4, or sometimes a 5 experience with breathwork. Some have gone deeper, but it's the same thing because you create those energy rushes. Some people claim that DMT is created through the lungs and in the pineal gland, where you can go into these psychedelic states just with your breath. Pretty cool, huh?
That is very cool. Very cool. So, okay, so somebody who's listening to this, they're probably thinking, all right, that sounds pretty badass. So how can I experience this? Like, is this something that you would recommend somebody to try at home, or is it better to, be in a group setting? What's your advice there?
So it's almost like anything where the group collective is stronger, in my opinion. So you can do it on your own, and there's amazing YouTube videos, and I've done that for years. So learning breathwork techniques, and there's 21-day programs and 3-month things that you can do that I found online that some are really, really awesome. But I'd recommend to find different breathing patterns from different teachers and see what resonates with you. Some are very, and just go on YouTube and look up Wim Hof method. Wim Hof is a guy that's, are you familiar with Wim Hof? Yeah, he's making breathwork super famous, and his is very physiological. Learn to really take in a lot of oxygen and feel your body intensely, so you can hold your breath for 2, 3, 4 minutes and sit in cold and do crazy things. Which, by the way, I do. I have a cold plunge in my backyard. It's really fun. So, but that's might be too intense for some people. And then there's some where it's less oxygen, the better, like different awakening techniques that I'm actually in the process of learning new ones right now. And then there's ones where you go on journeys in your mind, where it's more shamanic-based journeys and with drumming. And then there's others where it's holotropic. Holotropic breathwork created by Stan Grab is insanely intense. And that's the type of one where, when in their protocols, they have somebody sitting over the top of you and watching you and helping you for hours, because that type of thing, in my opinion, is really difficult to go deep on your own. So there's certain types of breath work where it's much better to be in a group setting and feel the intensity of the group, have an instructor to keep you going. Because if you're not familiar with it and you don't kind of understand breath work, the ego, what I like to say is, ego gets exposed and it wants to itself off a lot. It'll quit. It'll 10 minutes of breathing, and it'll say, all right, this is enough. I'm hungry. What am I going to do today? And you can easily stop yourself. But if you have somebody there saying, no, Nate, no, you got to keep breathing, let's go, feel power happens. That's when the breakthroughs happen. So most of the time when you're feeling these physical sensations in the body, and sometimes breath work is breath work where it can be painful and you're trying to release old pains, old traumas, and have cathartic releases. If that hurts and nobody's there to keep you going, you might just quit. So overall, be with somebody, but you can still do it at home.
Right. So it sounds like then at home, like you can get, like, most likely you can get yourself up to the point of a breakthrough, but most likely, if you're not experienced in it, the ego gets in the way and pulls you back.
Sure, just like meditation. I mean, some can do it, some can't. That's why you need teachers. That's why you need, I like to call it sacred space. You have the space to be willing to go deeper. And breathwork is a catalyst to everything, in my opinion. You can go into yoga and talk about the whole 8 limbs of yoga, where step 1 is physical asana, step 2 is pranayama breathwork, which is preparation for step 3 is meditation. So your breathwork's a catalyst for everything, but it goes so deep within you that if old pains and old hurts and old emotions come up to the surface and you don't know how to process them, it can freak people out. And having somebody there that can hold that sacred space that says, hey, Nate, it's okay to cry right now. Like it's okay to let go. It's okay to shake. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to, pound your chest and scream because you feel so alive. It gives people the permission. And that's what I've noticed over the years is you give people the permission to have these feelings and sensations, then they're more willing to go deeper. Maybe you can do it on your own, maybe not. It depends on you.
That makes me think of is it wasn't too long ago I did a quote unquote heroic dose with psilocybin mushrooms.
Yes.
And first of all, it surprised me because it came on so fast. I didn't have time to prepare myself. But the other big thing is for the first 2 hours, exactly what you're talking about. My ego fought that to the end. I was like, this was a bad idea. I don't know why I'm doing this. Nope, I'm just gonna make it over. And so I was moving around the house trying to get out of it. And it wasn't until I laid down, I was just gonna be with it, And I let go of the fear. It was like everything changed instantaneously. It was
the surrender.
The surrender. And so I know I have always heard about what my ego doesn't fight me. I don't have an ego, and then but to actually experience it, that I am totally fascinated with the idea of being able to do this without having to get your hands on any class 1 drugs to experience such a profound shift within myself and also for other people to experience it. So
here's something interesting about that. So going back to the whole idea of you personally are super interested in neuro-linguistic programming and reprogramming the subconscious mind. Well, a couple things. The breath work is a catalyst for cathartic releases. So catharsis is old repressed emotions, sensations, memories, feelings that your mostly subconscious mind holds on to. And you can basically in breath work relive past traumas and release them. I can tell you hundreds of stories. There's a guy that came a couple months ago. He relived his birth. He felt the pain of his mother as she was birthing him. And people went through, last week, 3 different people in my class went through sexual traumas where somebody was raped, somebody was molested, and they were able to bring that up to the surface and release it and let it go so the reprogramming can take place. And that's just what psychedelics can do. MAPS and the psychedelic studies are realizing that this is so powerful that you can go deep inside your conscious mind and subconscious mind and superconscious mind to pull out all this junk and garbage that's been holding you back, even that you don't even know of. So it's just like psychedelic. And you can see in ayahuasca, the example I like to give in breathwork is something will come up and you'll go, oh, wow, there's something happened when I was 6 years old that I repressed. And now when I was 16, I acted out this way because of that. And now I'm 35 and I'm still acting out because this happened, this happened, this happened. You can see the patterns so you can break them.
Wow.
Because it cuts off the conscious thinking mind a little more and you can go into the deep recesses of the mind. So the way I do the classes is I say this is a way to your infinite self. Your infinite self sometimes needs to be shedded and layered to where, okay, you have the physical body, you have the mental body, you have the emotional body, you have what's called in yoga, the causal body, where the space in between everything, and you have your spirit or your soul, whatever you want to call that. When you can get into these deeper states, you can connect to all these levels, and it's just like yoga. Okay, yoga is really good because it helps you realize what you need to work on. Like if a left hip's tighter than the right hip or whatever, or if you can't breathe really well in the chest. Yoga is also, in a lot of ways, I'm not going to say not good. It's challenging because it shows you what you need to work on, and the ego doesn't like that. So it exposes like, oh shit, I'm a chest breather. I'm going, I can't breathe and flow in a vinyasa class, and it tells you what you need to work on. Breathwork's the same way. So you go back to that neuro-linguistic programming, or just trying to be a better person in general. Breathwork's going to say, oh shit, I still have parent issues, and they came up. Oh my God, I'm still holding on to an old relationship. And, because there'll be people in the breath classes that 20, 30 minutes in, if not sooner, will just start crying. They'll just start bawling their eyes out. I've done it too. And it's crazy. It just comes up just like on psychedelics. Things come to the surface and you go, oh my God, they're still there. They're still in my subconscious mind. And I'm not going to say if you're smart enough, if you have the right tools, you can release those and let them go. The problem with psychedelics, in my opinion, one of them is the integration factor of learning how to integrate what you saw and what you experienced.
Totally.
Breath work is a little bit, I've heard this over the years of people that have done both. Breath work you can control it a little better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can navigate the psyche sometimes a little more, whereas a psilocybin journey or an ayahuasca journey or whatever can be overwhelming to some. Breathwork, you can go into those recesses of the mind and actually do the work without overwhelming yourself, and then integrate at your pace. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, when you're doing breath work and you experience, those emotional releases come up, are they tied to a specific memory, or sometimes do you just feel an emotion just come up and come out? How would you describe that?
My class or other class experiences, I do journeys. So I let people journey into their own psyche. Once again, there's breath work for physiological reasons, for holding more oxygen, for more life force. The way I do it is a journey into your true infinite self. And you truly will come, if you come 10 times, you will have 10 different experiences. It is so mind-blowing where it's never the same. Sometimes it's physical and you're having physiological releases where it's literally physical, like, oh, my IT band released tension and my heart opened up and I can feel just a lot more life force, for instance, more chi or prana, energy moving through me. That's little more energy body. Next time it might be more energetic, where you're feeling the flow of electricity in your body and you're feeling the intense vibrations. And then one time it can be very emotional, where you're feeling anger in your heart, you're feeling anxieties in your stomach, and you're releasing them, and you're feeling old hurts and old traumas in an emotional way. And then another time you come, it's extremely meditative, and a lot of people go into these, they're called non-dual states, or the witness states. Are you familiar with those?
No, I've never heard that term.
Oh man, that's wild. Okay, so that's when you're the yogis talk about it, and the Vedas, and I mean, there's so much, but it's talking about you become the witness to yourself. So it's almost like astral projection, going out of your body and witnessing you as the I, and your over soul or your energy, whatever you want to call it, is witnessing that. So then you can go into non-judgmental states, and you can relive past traumas and all this stuff without judgment. That's the biggest thing. The biggest thing in breathwork, and the way I teach it, is you can pull up these old memories and sensations and bubble it to the surface. If you're in a non-judgmental way, you just release them through your thoughts, through your mind, through shaking, through laughing, through crying, whatever. And you do it over and over and over. It releases the bond. It releases the attachment to it, just like the Buddhists talk about, release the addiction, you release the attachment. So then it has less power. It has less frequency and control over you, to where after a while it's like, oh, this pain, because everything comes from a thought turns into usually a physical sensation or emotion, and they're all tied to connection. You got to break that pattern. And breath work, you can do that. So you have all these different experiences every time. But the problem is, Nate, not problem, the challenge is you never know. It can be also extremely spiritual. So I do one of them in a church, not a church, more of a shrine, and play this beautiful music. And I don't know exactly what people do or go to, but they tell me, so I tell it, here's the experiences. And some people go, I talked to God. I saw my dead relatives. My mom came and talked to me that passed away a year ago. I mean, we're talking wild stuff. wild stuff. And truly, I'm a very spiritual person, but it could be your psyche, it could be the DMT rush that happens in your body, or it could be you're piercing the veil of reality. You're going into those fourth dimensional states and fifth dimensional states, and you're going into those places that are beyond the physical reality. Because we could talk forever about quantum physics and quantum reality and the whole time space continuum. And as you get into these deeper states, it changes. Like us as humans, the visible spectrum's so small. Like we can barely see microwaves and delta waves and gamma waves and theta waves and all these things. And as you go into these deep psychedelic states through breath work, you can access a lot of these vibrations and feel the chi, the pranas, the life force. And it's wild. Like, it's absolutely wild, but you never know. That's why it's so powerful. So what's the key to that besides surrender is, I say the same thing to everyone else. Everyone is to live in the magic and mystery, because the conscious mind is never going to understand the full reality of it. The finite can never understand the infinite. So you've got to surrender. It doesn't matter what the chemicals do in the brain and how it's rewired in a lot of ways. You don't have to understand how DMT is released in the body potentially, and how you're seeing all these visions and colors, and how does that happen? You got to allow it, and then let the magic take place.
I wish I was in Arizona so I could come to one of your sessions.
You gotta start doing it one over the Skype or something. So yeah, for sure.
So I'm curious, have you ever worked with anybody online or through Skype? Is that something that you would consider offering?
It has to happen. It really does. I like the individual because it's just so much more intimate. That's my personality, and you can get to know somebody better. But there's just so many people that can't drive or be in Phoenix or whatever. So yes, it is happening. I'm doing a 21-day protocol and this other awakening breathwork technique, and it's all done via Skype, and it really works. So might as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, so let's say somebody's sitting at home and they're saying, okay, I'm ready to start doing this. I want to experience it. What would be some advice that you would give somebody on, like environment and like what to expect, and then probably like say a really good technique just to start experiencing it and working with it?
Great questions. Set and setting is huge. So being comfortable, obviously, create your sacred space. So I can't stress that enough, that the power is in the sacred space. And then if you set intentions, invocations or affirmations or whatever, you set the intention for, allow whatever happens to happen. That's a really positive intention. Allow yourself to surrender. Tell your subconscious mind you want to go deep, and stop the monkey mind from talking. Like this is the type of thing where I like to teach the stuff that really can rock your world. Once again, we're not just talking about a breathwork technique per se. We're talking about a way into your infinite self. So you set the setting, set and setting like a psychedelic experience. Put on the right music if you already know the breathwork technique or whatever, and really just sit there. And then one of the things that a good technique is, or a good intention is, to try not to stop when you think you need to stop, to find those breakthroughs and those flows. And maybe it's 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, set a timer. You don't want to overdo it, but once you learn the protocol and the technique, you want to flow, and you want to not stop yourself from feeling and sensing. And the breathwork technique that I would say is just look up conscious breathwork, look up shamanic breathwork, look up circular breathing. There's some more intense ones that have the protocols that have their own structures, but for the most part, I like to teach just a basic circular breathwork. Do you want to hear it right now?
Yeah, man. But one question before we jump into that. So you said turn on the right music. Like, what is the right music for somebody that would help this?
Oh man, there's so much. There's the tones and the beats. You can find ones that are basically created for breathwork experiences, or 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out. So you're learning to find breath flows and just get in the feeling of it. There's I like really tribal music and really grounding, and Native American, shamanic-ish type music, because it hits you to your core. So if you want whatever resonates, and then I also do angelic music. If you go online, you can type on breathwork music, even just on YouTube, and there's ones that are absolutely wild. You want to hear a crazy story really fast?
Definitely, yeah.
I went to Burning Man 2 years ago now, and they did a breathwork experience there, and this was I don't even know how to describe it. It was basically about probably 80 people in a tent. And these three people said, we're going to play music. We're going to play it really loud. We're going to play drums and didgeridoos for 45 minutes. Here's a circular breathing pattern. Breathe as loud, breathe as fast as you can. And I don't know if I don't know if I advocate that to everybody, because it's like, you got to be careful sometimes and not overdoing it if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
But we did that, and it was just 10 minutes in, people are screaming, people are laughing, people are crying, and I'm over there just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But the whole point of the story is like, just put some music on and breathe, and learn some techniques, and have some fun with it, because they're in my opinion, there's you need to learn how to activate your body. You need to learn how to activate the microcosmic orbit, or the system in the body, what you're looking for certain results, if you want to go deep. But at the same time, learn a simple technique, and then be more intuitive, the depth and the flow that works for you. Try to find these deep states that feel good for you, that you can handle, and then just have fun with it. Because the breathing, a lot of people shut off because it's hard, and well, find what works for you and explore it. And guess what happens after this? Then the body will surrender to the breath. The breath will have its own intelligence, its own energy. It'll breathe you, and then it becomes more tantric. It becomes more like the breath is breathing you, or some people say God is breathing you, and it becomes autonomic, and it really just moves you, and you're surrendering to the flow, and you're going, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing, but this feels amazing. Wow. Oh, wow. Because you activated it and then surrendered. It's so wild.
Wow. So the actual work of the process disappears, and then you just get enveloped inside the experience. Is that?
That's a flow state. Yep. So the flow state of breathwork, exactly. And that's why techniques, it's hard for me to say, do this technique, do that technique. I don't know what every person wants. They might just want to be able to breathe better, and here's a good technique for that. There's even rebirthing as a classic example with Leonard Orr, where you're going back and reliving childbirth and traumas, and you're going super deep, and that's a good technique for PTSD and all that. And holotropic's a little crazier, and then there's ones with less oxygen, the better, and there's Taoist ones for internal alchemy, and there's tantric ones for igniting your sexual fire and doing big draws and having your body, instead of having genital orgasms, you're having body orgasms, and you're having emotional orgasms. And you talk about going into sexual alchemy through breathwork. I mean, tantra, almost everything revolves around breathing and feeling and sensing, and that's a whole different topic too. So you want to have a better sex life, and you want to connect to yourself deeply and do tantric experiences one-on-one. Breathwork is a catalyst to all of that. I mean, it's everything. So you can go online and do tantric breathwork. You can go online and do spiritual breathwork. You can go online and do things that like personal growth and development, where there's beautiful videos of Tony Robbins and whoever, or people put videos to that. It's all about breathe and feel your personal power. Breathe and feel that you can do this. That type of thing. So even you, Nate, like all your beautiful, amazing videos that I've watched on you, people, I would recommend, as they're watching what you're creating, breathe to it, because then it can feel it. Then you can create the vibration inside of you to actually like embody it, because the mind only goes so far. And you say the whole Tony Robbins, I can do it, yeah. Well, if you feel it, then the body can vibrate and source code to that and match the vibration and frequency. So breath's a catalyst to everything. That's why it's like, go explore and go feel, and maybe you'll resonate to Wim Hof more. Maybe you'll resonate to a psychedelic experience, or I don't know. I mean, there's so many things. It's wonderful. And last thing too with that, we were talking before we started recording, is you said, how you're mind blown in a lot of ways that breath work isn't as big as it could be, I guess is the right word.
Right.
And in my opinion, it is now in different settings, like in Bali and California and all these things. And even Phoenix, I started doing breath work about 3 years ago. And I don't know, there's only a handful of people. Now there's a lot. And I read an article saying that this article was stating that breath work is the new yoga. And it was fascinating. It was, this is the new thing. Yoga just took off incredibly, but breath work is a way into preparation for meditation. It's a way into, like we said, cathartic releases. It's a way much. So once people found the power of yoga in the Western world, and some go way deeper than others, whatever. Same thing with breath work. It can be just a physical experience, or it can be a way into your soul, into your psyche, into tantric activations, into, you want to go really woo-woo and spiritual, into like energy transmissions and kundalini awakenings, and go into different types of yogas, the kundalini yogas and whatnot. It's a way to activate your internal alchemy system and all these vibrations and sensations. Well, the breath can do that. The breath can help you, and it's only gonna open up people's minds to the reality of what's already been known. If you look back in the ancient scriptures and textures, like they know the breath of fire and all these techniques that they used to do, and it's all there for us. We just gotta discover it.
What blows my mind is that like the depth of what you're talking about, the healing that humanity can experience, because like let's be honest, like humanity is sick. Like as far as a species or an organism, like we are very ill right now. And we have this abundance of opportunity all around us, oxygen, and it's been forgotten. And now, like with what you're saying, that wisdom, this tool is coming back into our awareness. And, what this could do for the evolution of humanity and society and our future and everything is massive. So, first of all, I just want to say, man, like I honor you for what you're doing and what you're giving back to the people that are able to experience what you're working with.
And it's almost like painting a broad brush picture of going, here's the possibilities, because you can breathe solo on a YouTube video. You can breathe with your loving partner and go into tantric experiences, or you could breathe together and go through old challenges. You can go in circles that are specifically based for trauma release. You can do so much that it's almost like never ending or infinite potential through the breath work into other avenues and venues. And go do breath work on a psychedelic. Like, that's mind blowing. To learn how to like get out of your head into your heart. I did that on ayahuasca once, and just like boom, because the breath can just go take you to deeper places. And I'm not the most qualified to explain what happens to you physically or chemically, but there's a lot. If you learn how to breathe in the low belly, well, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. You get away from the fight or flight breathing, which lowers your anxiety. The low belly will start to pump the lymph system. So the lymph system's your toxin drain, and the low belly activates that. So you'll have toxin releases. The CO2 that's releasing will really detox your body. I mean, go look at the benefits of deep CO2. You're releasing completely all this stuff, and then your body can handle more oxygen. So that's more life force. So your blood starts flowing better. You're eliminating waste better. You're getting rid of brain fog. You can go into deeper fasting states, for instance. Like you can learn to curb the control of the of the cravings for food, for instance. You can say, oh, I can breathe for 10 minutes and my craving for chocolate will go away. Like that can happen, and a lot of like breatharians and the people that go really, really deep, they say you can literally get life force from breath, and you don't need as much food. You don't need as much what we think we need in life. And then dietary changes can happen, and you all of a sudden don't want to eat red meat or whatever, and things change because you're allowing your system to work properly and you're allowing it to feel. There's a guy that came to my class last night for the third time. Phenomenal experiences. First time he went, he said it's been 3 weeks, he hasn't had a cigarette, which is huge in itself. And then he said last night, he said something just really cool. It was all about this whole I'm feeling myself more. I'm stopping the cravings of comfort food is basically, what he was talking about. And when he gets stressed and he goes, I realize that I can control myself through the breathing, even if it's just for a moment. And that's, personal story. I've had anxiety for 15 plus years. I had a lot of pressure on me growing up, and a lot of things that I'm honestly still like having reverberations with. And I read this book once that was basically saying, like, when you have anxiety and all this stuff and you feel like you're not in control, you can go into something that you are in control of. Well, what are you in control of? Your breathing. And when you learn, like, oh, I can control my breathing. Oh, my breathing can relax me. It can calm me down. At least that's enough to maybe think better, or think more properly, or not lash out at your partner or whatever. And I'm not perfect at this, and it's hard at times, but it's a way to control something to where you feel like you can be in control of yourself, and then that has infinite potentials on that end. So, like I said, it can go so many ways.
That's epic.
Okay,
so let's jump in then. I guess so. You were going to show us a minute ago just how to do it, like how to get started. So the people watching this, they can go set up their sacred space, get some good music going, some tribal or something that's specifically for this, and then so how do we breathe? How do we do that?
The way I like to do it, and once again, there's many other ways, but the way I like to do it is breathing in and out through the mouth or in and out through the nose. The mouth will always be much more intense. There are certain people that don't advocate the mouth as much, but I like to do what feels good for you and keep it very intuitive. And you always want to start in the low belly, usually, because we're trying to get away from the chest breathing. You want to start in the low belly, and the way I teach my breath of life activations and my more grounding experiences, you breathe in the low belly first. You fill your low belly up like a water balloon, so the navel shoots out, and you do it to where it's not like you're not straining yourself, but it's full. And then at the inhale, on the first inhale in the low belly, and then you're going to breathe all the way up into the chest, all in the inhale. So that's the inhale, the low belly first, up into the chest, then exhale, release. So low belly first, fill the low belly through the diaphragm, up into the chest, exhale, release. So this is a circular breathing pattern. Low belly first, up into the chest, exhale, release.
And that's all through the mouth?
You can do it. I do it. I tell people you can do whatever you want. Low, all through the mouth, which will give you more oxygen, or through the nose. There's so many breathing techniques. It's crazy. But this is a way to find flow states in circular breathing. So where you're activating that low belly breathing, you're taking in more oxygen, you're getting away from the fight or flight, you're getting the lymph system drainage and all that. So as long as you breathe in the low belly first, you sometimes don't even have to breathe in the upper chest. It'll open itself up to you a little bit more, because what we didn't talk about is if you go really deep, your body will literally create tremors. It'll create physical sensations where your body will just start shaking. It'll have what's called tetany, where your fingers will lock up and sometimes your hands will lock up. Did you ever get that deep to where your hands are locked up?
I did, yeah. I did it just far enough. Like so my experience, because I just started doing this. I've done it 2 times now, heavy. The first time was 20, and the second time I did 30 minutes. Gotcha. And on the 30-minute one, like I felt my entire body, like it felt like an energy was just like reverberating inside of me, and like my fingers, like I couldn't move my fingers. And I was reading on another video where somebody was talking about this, and there was a lot of people that like were freaking out and they're really concerned about that. So I guess maybe that's something worth addressing for the people. Is that?
Yeah, and do your own research, because that's the one thing where if you really get into breath work, I mean, I just watched a webinar last guy who teaches the technique, the less oxygen, the better, in certain ways, because like the really intense stuff that really gets you into these psychedelic states and whatnot, you can definitely overdo it. Like you can overdo it, and you got to be careful. You got to have somebody that's trained or know what they're doing to sometimes to make it so it's not overwhelming. But most everyone does experience tetany a little bit, or they experience the involuntary shakes, or they get a little bit of paralysis. Sometimes the paralysis happens because it's energy blocks or just physical blocks and whatever.
Wow.
From what all I've read is in the whole scope of the things is it's not scary as long as you're, breathing in your parasympathetic low belly. If it gets to the point where it's, that's where people can have like those panic feelings and whatnot. And I have a breathwork practitioner friend that talks about if it's tetany in the hands, a lot of times it's heart issues and you got to learn to breathe. But the most part, it's just a lot of people aren't used to taking in so much oxygen and releasing so much CO2 that you go into this usually acidic state into an alkaline environment, and the body just goes, "What the hell is going on?" And so there's a time where it's got to adapt. And I would like if you keep going, that tetany and those experiences actually I like them. Like you crave them, but you at the same time, like I'm cautioning everybody, like you got to still be careful. You got to have you have to do your own research on it to where if it's so intense. In my class, I say if it's so intense for you, just calm your breathing, relax. Usually goes right away. Sometimes shake it out because it's stuck energy, stuck sensations. But at the same time, you could hurt yourself if you really pushed it. In my opinion, it would take a lot, but you always got to do your own research and be careful.
Makes sense. So to practice it, just to go over this one more time. So in through the mouth, through the nose, you fill up the bottom of your belly, and then you let it come up and fill your chest, and then exhale, and you just do that over and over, and that is considered circular?
Yeah, circular breathing. There are some techniques that are really good too, where it's 2 inhalations in and 1 exhalation. So it's low belly, upper chest, exhale. That teaches you to get like 2 different parts to it. I've done a couple classes that other people have taught that technique, and it's a much more controlled way to where it's almost impossible to overdo it. That makes sense. The one I like to do is exactly that, but in a circular flow. So the more you do that, it becomes more wave-like, more circular, to where there's no, like, you're not stopping at the top, you're not stopping below. It basically sounds like this. If you're doing it fast, it sounds like this. But it's low belly, chest, exhale, low belly, chest, exhale. And then what I tell people is you can hold your breath at any moment. You can exhale with no air in the lungs and just sit there. That's when you find those transcendental states, those Wim Hof, does stuff like that, where you drop into your energy body with no air in the lungs or with full oxygen, and you sit there for 2, 3, 4 minutes with no air. You don't need air. Your body dissolves, your mind dissolves. There was one guy who was a breathwork practitioner himself. He came to my class, and he said that he was doing these techniques and he knows what he's doing. He said that he held his breath once. His body fully dissolved. The I thought dissolved, so there was no him. He was watching himself as the witness to himself, and he was watching the watcher. He said he had 3 different parts to his psyche, all, he said, watching himself, that himself didn't even exist. I mean, we're talking wild stuff. And that's happened to me once in a meditation and breath work in Thailand, where I felt my conscious mind, my subconscious mind, and my superconscious mind, kind of like the id, the ego, the superego. I felt all those patterns, and I felt them talking to each other, if that makes sense. It was wild. So like this breathing technique, that's why you find those flow states and breathe and flow and breathe. And whenever you feel like it, hold your breath. There's clenching techniques, there's tightening techniques, there's big draws techniques for tantric sexual energy. If you go into the Taoist principles, and we could talk forever about the internal alchemy and the microcosmic orbit. You ever heard of the microcosmic orbit before?
I've never heard that.
Oh, go look it up.
Okay, so what is it?
Microcosmic orbit, and a Taoist technique, and it goes a little farther than Taoism, but it's a way of the Kundalini tantric energies inside of you. It's awakening the serpent inside of you, to where when you're doing these circular breathing techniques, there is like the bandhas in yoga. And so, for instance, just an easy example is as you're breathing up, for instance, maybe you want to clench the PC muscles, the muscles that you use to urinate, that you hold your urine back. You clench that and allow the energy to go up your spine. You could do that through visualization, through allowance. You're activating your own internal energy. You exhale, relax, and let go. Inhale, clench the PC muscle. Exhale, let go. and you put the tip of the tongue on the roof of your mouth, and the microcosmic orbit will bring energy up and drop it down, bring it up, drop it down. So you're creating your own internal energy system. That's one way of doing breathwork where you're activating flowing. There's other breath techniques where you have to surrender. You let divine grace, divine energies and frequencies flood you. And that's just a full-on surrender. And then there's so much more. But like that's something that you can do to open up your chi, to get your sexual energy flowing. And if you go really deep, you know, as a man, this might be a side note, but you can have multiple orgasms as a man. You can learn how to do these energy things to open up different parts of your body. And so your heart can have orgasms, your mind can have orgasms. You can hold back through seminal retention. I mean, we're going off on a whole tangent, but through the microcosmic orbit and through all this stuff and holding breath techniques, and maybe you're breathing in, you fully exhale with no air in the lungs and you're hyperoxygenated, so you can hold for 2-3 minutes. You drop your neck front. You stop the energy from coming in, and you just hold that frequency in from your chest all the way down to your PC. There's an awakening technique that I'm learning that kind of does that, and you're holding the energy in, and all of a sudden, taking a huge life force energy, all of a sudden, boom, the energy is free, and it can open you up. So there's a lot of just internal alchemy and magic that can happen. I don't know what the right word is. It's magic.
Well, that's what it sounds like, because, like, you know, I came into this thinking that it was just breathing in lots of oxygen and it made things happen. And what you're talking about is you're taking it to a whole nother level, and that's like what you're saying, harnessing chi and life force and using physical practices to actually alter our energetic states. And like, this is a whole nother level that I didn't even know existed in this.
And it goes, you can go down the rabbit hole with it. It's so much. Here's another example that I can give the listeners and yourself that I like to give an example of. So everyone has trauma, right? Correct? We all have something emotional wounds, physical wounds, and breath work. You could literally just do it for the physical, just learn a technique to control anxiety, for instance. And all of a sudden you're doing a breathwork technique and an emotion comes up and you're like, holy cow, I've held on to this for 12 years. And I'm like going, wow, like I didn't even know I had that. So that's the power of breathwork that can come up. But let's say that I come over and I punch you as hard as I possibly can in the shoulder. Okay. That's going to hurt. You're going to remember it. I come up to you the very next day and I go, hey, Nate, but I don't hit you. Guess what's going to happen to your body? What's going to happen to your body?
You're going to get tight.
You're going to get tight. You're going to feel the reverberations of the memory of the pain.
Oh,
the body's going to clench and react, and you're going to internalize that. Well, that happens to everything. When somebody says a negative thought to you, if somebody puts you down, if your parents, did something to you when you were younger, if your peers were mean to you in high school or whatever, all that stuff holds, just like if I was going to hit you and the body remembers, it creates a defense mechanism. So like the ego wants your sustainability. The ego, in my opinion, is good and bad, but breathwork exposes it to say, ego doesn't want you to get hurt, but at the same time, you might have to relive that pain and trauma to where you can release those old stagnant wounds and frustrations, to where if somebody goes like this to you, it doesn't have the same effect as it used to. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah, it's so mind-blowing. So you can learn to reprogram through the cellular level. And if you go really deep, like the whole going into cellular memories and going into the really deep stuff where your body remembers everything. It remembers absolutely everything, and you need a way to let that old stagnant energies and sensations and memories to flush out of your system. That's where people clench and hold up. So what if that person gets hit 5, 10, 15 times and never lets go, and always thinks that a maternal whatever person, they're all going to hit me. That's a very broad statement, but
right.
It's, whatever. You got to release that, so then you're not holding on to that pain the rest of your life. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Because that's the kind of thing that we could go through an entire life and never know that an event like that is holding us back from like truly experiencing the freedom, and abundance from within that we could. Yeah. And so what you're saying is by doing this, we can access those things and experience life from a completely different place. I mean, and like, and it's like, I guess if you were thinking about, working with somebody or you're having a discussion with somebody and that person is in a negative state of mind versus a positive state of mind, like the person in a positive state of mind is always going to have better ideas and be more creative. And so like if we can release these things and let these things go, like we can bring into this world a whole lot more of our true authentic selves. And I think that is one of the most important parts of this experience of being a human. Like, that's
it's the whole like out with the old, in with the new. And we were talking in the beginning of creating either through a group or through yourself. Guess what? You got to create the sacred space inside of you to allow the inspiration and all that stuff to flow through you. Because if you get into the esoteric metaphysical aspects of life, which I enjoy a lot, even like the new age woo-woo stuff that's kind of fun to learn about. I don't know. Yeah. It's the whole idea of letting things work through you, being a channel to inspiration, to have insights and intuition. The breath work will do that. You'll go in and the subconscious mind works in visions and images and symbols and riddles, just like psychedelics. You'll go in ayahuasca, you'll see visions and go, oh, I became a dragon and it represented this, and oh my God, and my girlfriend was a dragon too, and we were going over lands and worlds, and that can happen in breath work, but it's up to you and your psyche to figure out what that means to you. Like everything's representations and symbols, so you can go into these deeper recesses of the mind and figure it out, if that makes sense, to go, okay, what needs to be released and let go? What needs to be brought in? How can I create this sacred space inside of me so internal alchemy, magic can happen, and I can surrender to the universe, or surrender to the divine, surrender to God, whatever your path is, or just become a better human. Like, forget all the spiritual stuff, just become a better human.
Totally.
It's a way into your best self, a way into your infinite self, and that's why it's so fun to talk to you, and so exciting, because people can go so many directions with it.
Yeah,
infinite.
So, all right, man. So I think that if you don't mind, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to have you back at some point to discuss like the progress that you've made and maybe some more experiences, and probably get a little bit deeper. And so I would love to invite anybody who's watching this to please drop questions below down in the comment section. And then what we'll do next time Colter comes on is we can address those questions that you guys have. And maybe get a little bit deeper. And before we go, I just wanted to ask, first of all, how do we connect with you? How do people see what you're doing and reach out to you?
Sure. Probably the easiest way is Facebook, Colter Smith, Colter, last name Smith. That's just usually the best. I have a MeetUp group with thousands of people in Phoenix Valley. So if you're in Phoenix, you can just type in a MeetUp group and come up. It's called the Spiritual Development Group. But I'm trying to, Instagram's wonderful. And then I would look me up on Instagram. I'm trying to post a lot more on that. And then coltersmith.com. So it's a website that's slowly building. Not the greatest right now, but it'll eventually get better. And that has just some links and some fun videos to show the intros to classes and all that.
Okay. And then how do they find you on Instagram? What's the
at Colter Smith 30.
At Colter Smith. Okay. And so what I'll do is I'll try to leave links for all this stuff down below in the description. And then before we go, Colter, are there any last words that you want the listeners to hear, or is there something that you think that they should know about this, about what we're talking about?
You are a master questioner. Let's see. I think thoughts, and the whole idea of make your mess your success kind of comes up a lot. And I've had my personal challenges in life, and a lot of it has been anxiety and internal battles per se. And I know the techniques and I know what to do, and at times it's still hard to put in the work. And sometimes it's breath work and sometimes it's doing yoga, and sometimes it's exercising, sometimes it's being super vulnerable and open with your significant other, whatever. It's just the thing that I've coming up as you asked that question is just find your vice, find what works for you. Breathwork is a tool in a toolbox that can open you up to so much more, that can bring you into deeper states. So maybe breathwork per se doesn't resonate with you, but if you learn a couple techniques, and all of a sudden you can control your anxiety, and then you can go into like, oh, now I can finally meditate, and then you can learn how to meditate. Or breathwork can get you into tantric lovemaking, or breathwork can get you into cathartic releases and trauma releases, or whatever. It's like be open to learning and discovering ways about yourself through the breathing, through visualization, through the emotional guidance system, the ways of going into your soul and into your spirit. And we didn't even go that deep about talking about the spiritual component of it, but I mean, it's a very spiritual experience. Go look at holotropic breathwork and shamanic breathwork and rebirthing, and people say it can be intensely spiritual, and your connection with God and all this stuff. So just be open to the experience of letting magic and mystery happen in your life. And maybe breathwork's a catalyst for you, maybe it's not, but do your research and find different ways and have fun with it. Be intuitive and feel and breathe and just enjoy life. Like, be a better human through breath. I don't know, whatever works for you, because it does feel really good. And then the last part of that is to not give up, because it goes back to when you're in a breathwork session, for instance. Usually when you want to give up is when a breakthrough happens. So really challenge yourself. The Wim Hof it's to prepare you to be into different states, like the extreme cold, and be able to handle it, so you get out of your comfort zone. Breathwork's kind of the same way, where you gotta get moving and get old shit going, so where it can be released. And sometimes that hurts. Breathwork is breath work. It's not. I mean, you come to a breathwork class of mine, 10 times have 10 different experiences. Maybe 8 out of the 10 times it's beautiful and loving, and you're having releases, and 2 out of the 10 times it sucks and it hurts. So you might have those experiences where you're like, this is painful. Screw breathwork. This sucks, because there's stuff there that needs to be released. And the one thing that I've heard over the years is people have come back to my class 5, 6, 7 months later, or a year later, and they go, I had an amazing experience. It was insanely amazing, and I haven't come back. And I go, why? And they go, well, lots of things, life stuff. And when you start talking to them, a lot of it is the ego gets exposed, and it goes, holy shit, I have to put in the work. Just like anything, it's a way of putting in the work. So don't be afraid when it's painful. Don't be afraid when it doesn't flow perfectly, because sometimes those deep states don't happen. And sometimes it's just I'm not going to just a painful experience, but there's more happening under the surface, more subatomic, more subconscious things that your conscious mind might not even know of, and you don't need to be know of. It's like, you don't need to know what's coming to the surface. Sometimes you just need to breathe. You just need to create that sacred space. And if a pain or sensation or memory comes up, you can choose to address it and release it, or you don't have to. So be kind to yourself, be good to yourself, and know that breathwork's a process just like anything else. And you're not going to become a master meditator right away. You might not have those peak experiences the first time or the second time or even the third time. But if you find your own vice, you find the right music, you find the right teacher, you find the right flow breathwork technique, the ways are infinite. And then you become like me, you become addicted to it. Then you're like breathing and jumping into cold plunges, and you're breathing and holding, and you're like, holy shit, I want to hold space for others and experience this, and I want to do this and that, because it's a whole like playground for the psyche, if that makes sense. I hope everyone can feel the excitement for that, of It's a playground into your infinite self. So go do it.
Well, and if it's gotten to that point for you, it's because you feel better when you're doing it, and like that's really what we all want. We all want to move towards feeling better.
One thing to say about that, Nate, and this is really deep. The whole idea of personal self-development, transformation, and growth. Like, you want those experiences that feel good. And I just read something yesterday. Alan Watts, the famous philosopher. Yeah. It was the whole idea of don't chase positive experiences. Negative experiences are actually positive, because if you want those positive experiences all the time, that's a lack, and you're always searching for it. And so in breathwork, and the way I was like trained and taught was, don't search for good, don't search for bad, just breathe and allow. Surrender to the experience, allow whatever happens to happen, because an old trauma comes up, it's not going to feel good. Right. And one time, like, you and I might do a one-on-one session, let's say hypothetically, and you're like, oh my God, I felt my energy, my body dissolved, I went into extreme meditative states. And the next time we do it, you go, dude, that was really hard. I was letting a lot of trauma out and a lot of this stuff, and it really hurt, and I was crying, and it was painful in my body. That's when people go, I don't want to do this again. But you put in the work, and what happens with breath work is sometimes the experience of the breath work creates the vibrational change where you can, I call it source coding, so you can code to different vibrations and frequencies and manifest and do all this stuff, but it might not happen in that moment. You might have to get all the old gunk and the old pains and hurts or whatever that might have surfaced. So then that night you can go home and fall in your bed, and all of a sudden it just, all the energies hit you. Or the next day it happens. It's the integration. I could tell you hundreds of stories. One lady said she had a horrible experience in the breath work and pain. 2 days later, her heart exploded in a good way, and she said for 5 days she was on a spiritual high. There's a guy that came, and he literally calls me up. He's like, "What did you do to me?" And I was, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I didn't do anything to you. He's like, "The breath work made me angry for 4 days." And I go, "Well, do you have anger in your heart and your body?" He goes, "I know I do, but it just came up so much that everything came to the surface, and I didn't know how to handle it." And so we talked about it and all that stuff. But the whole point is, your heart can be full of anger that you don't even know it. Like, it could be in there, and it's got to be released. Your heart may be full of love, and people feel like they're in the clouds, and they're feeling their energy body deeper than they've ever felt before. But you don't know. Like, the finite can never understand the infinite. So you got to surrender to the experience, allow whatever happens to happen, put in the work, create your sacred space, then let the divine, work through you. Or let your subconscious mind, reprogram itself sometimes. Like, breathwork, in my opinion, is a way of sometimes really surrendering, activating and surrendering, breathing and feeling. Find your depth, find your flow, and then it just adapts from there and evolves based on your intuition, based on the intentions, based on the teachers. And I mean, there's so many ways of doing it, but yeah, just put in the work and let the magic happen.
Colter, you are a fountain of wisdom and knowledge, man.
We talk forever. I love this.
And I love what you said, dude. The finite can never understand the infinite. That's why you just have to experience it and go through the process. So, man, I honor you. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing your wisdom. And I really hope that we can bring you back on in the future.
Oh, for sure. And hopefully this video gets moved around and people get excited about breathwork and possibilities, and hopefully we'll start a movement.
Yeah. So hey, you heard that. Share this video. Be sure to look Colter up online. Hit him up. And maybe work with him, get some breathwork training going. So thank you guys for watching this, and we will see you on the flip side.